The opposition is alleging government surveillance. This after a number of prominent members of the opposition, most of them parliamentarians, along with journalists, received an Apple alert warning them of quote unquote state sponsored attack or potentially a state sponsored attack. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. These Apple alerts received by several high profile public figures, almost all of them, at least in politics, from the opposition, alongside journalists and researchers, has created a veritable political storm. Rahul Gandhi and others have accused the government of surveillance. The government has said that the charges are absolutely false. They're pointing to an Apple statement calling it vague and a generalized advisory issued, according to the IT minister, in 150 countries. There is one Apple statement on the website and another statement being reported in the media that basically talks about how sometimes these alarms are false and at other times the attacks are undetected. But the opposition is arguing that the very fact that these alerts have been received on the iPhones of exclusively members of parliament belonging to the opposition parties points to the fact that, that the government or a government agency is behind this. Decoding both the politics and the technology, let's introduce our guest on the program today as we look at this big growing political storm. PKD Nambiar, political analyst and commentator, joins us. Welcome, PKD. Also joining us is a lawyer and public policy researcher, Divij Joshi. It's good to see you, Divij, after a long time. Sriram Karri is a senior journalist based out of Telangana. He is also one of the journalists who received that particular alert on his phone today, warning of a state-sponsored attack. We'll find out how he's feeling and whether he has any more clarity in a moment from now. Prakash is with us. Pranesh explains all things technical to us. We always turn to him for help, and it's good to see you here, Pranesh. And also joining us is the Congress spokesperson, Advocate Mahima Singh. Always a pleasure, Mahima. All right, let's get started. We have the opposition effectively accusing the government of attempting to surveil it. We have an Apple statement, but when we looked up the website, we can only find a published statement of 22nd August. It could be that Apple has reissued that statement today because it was certainly reported by media agencies like ANI. A kind of generalized statement that is saying that it has no knowledge of any specific state actors when it uses this language. And the Apple statement being quoted widely by government is that sometimes these can be false alarms, sometimes these can be algorithms acting up, and sometimes indeed attacks can go undetected. So first, let me start with you, Pranesh. Before we get into the politics and we lose ourselves in the politics, I want you and Divij to come in on the technology. What does it mean?
What's clear to me is that this isn't a general warning that has gone out to people, but specific warnings regarding specific threats that Apple has detected based on specific signatures that it is looking for. And this is actually something that not only Apple does, but other large tech companies also do. And so, all in all, to me, it's clear that this isn't a false alarm. The statement that people are referring to is a very general statement, which is a statement of non-attribution, that they don't specifically attribute attacks to specific nation states, and that's always difficult to say. That, while one can say that this has the trappings of state action, but it's not always clear which state actor is behind it, because oftentimes they're trying to obfuscate and trying to cover up their tracks.
What
But
does this phrase
I would take
mean?
it
What
seriously.
I want to ask you, what does this phrase state actor mean? When we look at my own experience at Mojo story, we were hacked and we had a kind of Elon Musk caricature dancing on our YouTube channel. We have no idea who did it. We really tried to find out. We have no idea who did it. So let's assume for a moment that indeed there is some sort of coordinated attack. How does the opposition link this back to government as they are? And what does it mean, this state-sponsored attack? What does this language mean in the alert, Pranesh?
What that is usually used for by entities that do this kind of detection, which isn't just big tech companies, but a lot of security companies and also research organizations like Citizen Lab. They use this term when they find an attack that is particularly sophisticated, which requires a lot of resources, that under the assumption that uh, resources of that kind would not be available to ordinary actors, or in
Hmm.
specific cases where they detect a particular kind of malware and it is stated that that malware is only available and only sold to state actors. So one of these two kinds of things would be attributed to state actors. One where it's very sophisticated, or two where it's a particular kind of spyware that is only sold to nation
Right.
states and isn't sold to private
So,
parties.
so you believe that this is something to be taken seriously. Let's put it like that. That's the bottom line, right?
Absolutely. I don't
Okay.
think this is a fluke. I don't think the Apple statement actually denies anything that we publicly know. It doesn't really downplay this at all. It just says that there may occasionally be false alarms, but this doesn't seem to be one of those instances, given the pattern that we see.
Okay, before I open up for the politics of what's happened, Divij, if you'd like to add to that, the problem is this: the alert is very specific. In a way, it says, you may be, we're warning you. There's a state-sponsored attack that may be coming, but the subsequent public articulation of Apple is only available through media agencies, and it's there's no name attached to it. It just says Apple in a statement said sometimes there are false alarms, sometimes there are undetected attacks, and we're not referring to anyone specific. Um, is there a contradiction between Apple's personal outreach to iPhone users, Apple users, and their public articulation?
I don't think so. So we have to understand what Apple's purpose in issuing this kind of a notification is, right? It's basically, they have a very complex intrusion detection system, and they have a very complex threat notification system. The purpose of that is basically so that so that the people who are most affected by the threat know that this is something that is kind of at a probabilistic level likely to have happened to them. And that they can protect themselves against it, and so that also that it doesn't spread to other people in that network potentially, and that Apple is taking steps to uh, kind of tackle that threat, and that also has a bunch of kind of liability issues entangled with it. That if Apple doesn't take the adequate steps according to a number of different kinds of privacy laws around the world, they may be compromised themselves. Now, because intrusion detection is incredibly probabilistic, they cannot really say, when they issue statements like this, they do it with a high degree of confidence in what they've said. But as Pranesh already pointed out, it's very difficult to say with complete certainty that it is this state that has, or this specific actor that's done something. That's also because of the nature of cyber attacks and the kinds of groups that are involved in it, right? So even if you say there's a state actor involved in it, state actors often channel cyber attacks through a bunch of other networks, right? So if you look at how security firms, say it's Mandiant or Kaspersky, classify state actors, it could even be, or state-sponsored actors. It may be a completely unregulated, outside of government group that's conducting these attacks, but they're still state-sponsored, and that's kind of the nature of how these threats are how they function.
But what is, again, I'm going to ask you, state sponsored is an assumption which points to the levels of sophistication or the acquisition of technology, right? Like there's no
Yes.
other basis to, I'm just clarifying, just for my own understanding. Is that correct, Divij?
So every kind of security team will have its its own definitions of what it would classify as a state sponsored action, right? This would depend on, of course, the levels of investment into that. So see, there's, for example, if you have a phishing email that's for financial purposes sent out to 1 billion people, so that you can clearly say that this is for the purpose of phishing. It's for getting money, it's for duping people. So it's a security threat at a mass level, for
Right.
the purposes of compromising people's financial information. Now, when you have something that's targeted at a very specific number of people, usually people who are, say, of interest to specific governments, journalists, people in different kinds of opposition parties or other networks of people, then you can narrow down. You can say, okay, this is not for financial gain, There's clearly
Yeah,
some kind of other motivation
got it.
behind it, and therefore you say, okay, so this is probably attributable
So
to a state agent instead.
So this is what the opposition is saying, Mahima. But how do you then make the leap in blaming the government for it? Because there are also certain things, certain dots that don't connect. Can we actually just ask Sriram to reconnect? Yeah, thanks. There are certain dots that don't actually connect. There is, for example, Samir Saran, who leads the Observer Research Foundation, who is not necessarily known as a critic of the government. There is Sriram, who's with us. I'm not sure he'd classify himself necessarily as a critic of the government. There are others. There's a satirist who has received this notification. So, Mahima, A, why do you feel only the opposition has been targeted given some of these other examples? B, how do you make the leap in terms of blaming the government as Rahul Gandhi has today? Mahima, please go ahead.
Jai Hind, and thank you for that query, Barkha, because I think every Indian needs to ponder over that quintessential query today. Because the Apple statement that has come out, and I would like to read the initial few lines of that statement, goes like this. The Apple says that Apple does not attribute the threat notifications to any specific state-sponsored attacker. State-sponsored attackers are very well funded and sophisticated, and their attacks evolve over time. Now, today I'm reminded of the time when Pegasus case was going on in the Supreme Court, Barkha, and you would remember that there was an affidavit that was filed by the government before the Supreme Court, and it was not signed by anybody. That became a controversy. Then later on, we found out at a stage that the government had handled the Pegasus files so carelessly, they were misplaced or burnt, I suppose. So that went on, and thereafter we saw how the Pegasus matter was handled, and the report clearly said that the investigation has not been taken up as seriously as it should have been. I'm also reminded of Jack Dorsey, the former Twitter head's statement when he said that the government of India had threatened Twitter of suppressing their operations or interfering with their operations if they did not suppress the content related to the farmers' protests and otherwise. And I think we have innumerous such examples. Now, today, what we see is a series of names which brings out a pattern. And I think any right-thinking person today, not I would not say any right-thinking Indian, any right-thinking, any conscious person today would simply make out what's going on. This is snooping happening at the behest of the very
And your
authority.
basis for saying that is the profile of the people who have received this alert today.
Also that, and also you see India has been ranked second in tech exposure breaches, Barkha, with 2.29 billion records exposed. And what has the Indian government done for that? It is every Indian's security at stake. And what we see in front of us is a list of entitled individuals in this country who represent masses. If they can be targeted, then think of you and I. So I think it is the government which is not doing enough, rather, that is causing this kind of snooping and the breach of
Okay.
our right to privacy.
Okay, so the IT minister did speak to the press, PKD Nambiar, and he made a couple of points. He said these people who are complaining, he called them compulsive critics. He said the government has ordered an inquiry. He said that the Apple statement's language was vague. It had been issued in 150 countries. He did not point to any specific agency. Nevertheless, he said the opposition must cooperate, and the BJP is pointing out to the fact that Rahul Gandhi previously has refused to hand over the phone. Priyanka Chaturvedi, who I was speaking to earlier, said, who's going to hand over a phone if you suspect the state of having compromised it? Why would you hand over that device? Where do we go from here, Mr. Nambiar?
Well, I think you were mentioned about the Pegasus one, and this is the second time which we are seeing it. I think this is a serious concern, and if it is only for a selective number of people, whether it is journalists and the MPs or whatever it may be, it adds further more concerning. But one thing I am surprised, because I participated in a number of debates related to Pegasus then. That time it was the media has almost decided that there is Pegasus is used into all these journalists and celebrities or whatever, the political celebrities, which I call them. So, but unfortunately, when the Supreme Court appointed committee asked all those people to submit, if you have a strong feeling that your phone has been compromised by government or by some other agency, in India's case, India's tech forensic is very, very, very good. In fact, even from the international organizations do consult us for that. So I think it is important. There should be complaints which is filed under the cyber law or any other laws which may be prevailed in the country. So I think then, if required, all those people who feels that this has been happened, in fact, but then such kind of a messages do come and go in many times. In fact, I received a message somewhat similar about your phone is under threat, maybe someone else is watching. I have been using an iPhone ever since iPhone has come in. But then I asked my office, I run an IT company, so I asked my cyber guy that, yeah, what is this? Sir, ये छोड़ दो आप इसको, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
I mean, honestly, I should know better after we were hacked, but I may not have even read an iMessage. That's the other point. Like, I may not have even read it. If I'd read it, I would probably thought it's spam.
No, this is a series of messages, these kind of messages. I'm not saying that this is especially an Apple as a device, because it is supposed to be one of the finest when it comes to security, do come with such kind of an issue of notices, whether it is in the email or iCloud or for that matter any other stuff. But I think the matter of concern here should be that all these people who feel that they have been snooped by the government or government agencies, or for that matter anybody, should be
so here's the zero sum nature of the game, because nobody actually submits their devices, and that's something
nobody. So if you don't have anything much to hide, nobody is interested in your personal profile or personal details.
But come on, yeah, no. Would you hand over your phone? Would you hand over your phone to perfect strangers? You may have nothing to hide, but you have a thing called your privacy, upheld by the Supreme Court, the right to privacy.
No,
right?
I think
you have your private life.
You cannot even just see when you are attacked. When the question is that you are not privacy means you are only giving it to the authorities who is responsible to get justice for you.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point because the BJP has officially raised it today. If you don't hand in your devices, how do you expect the inquiry to proceed? And it's a fair point. But I want to bring in Sriram for a second. Sriram, you received this alert. When you read it, what did you think first? Did you think it was spam? Did you take it seriously? Did you say, oh my God, I am now in this club of, Shashi Tharoor, Mahua Moitra, Priyanka Chaturvedi, all the other sort of Asaduddin Owaisi. What did you think?
Thank you, Barkha, for the opportunity to respond. No, I not received this for the first time. I do not feel elated to be in any club. I do not have a Louis Vuitton bag to be in that club anyway. My point is very simple. I want to repeat certain things spoken about the distinction between a private attack and a potential state-sponsored attack. Two aspects which India has not yet spoken. One, if you get an alert that a state-sponsored cyber attack is happening on you, what cyber laws or which cyber crime police station can I go to and register a complaint under what section? Suppose I go to the cyber police station and show him this message. Can they register a complaint in India and start acting against him? I do not think so. I don't know. I haven't tried. Second, when the first time I received this, and Apple, all of you, most of you have Apple may have received this. It gives you a series of instructions on how to reduce your risk, which largely reduces the efficiency of the phone. So what happens is you do enhance your security, like you do in the case of a physical attack. If there's a bomb blast or if there's some theft in your neighborhood, everybody's sense of being alert and vigilance goes up, but then you lower your guard over a period of time. So no, I'm not feeling important. Maybe I'm the least important person in that list or any list. Maybe it was an accident.
But do you feel creeped out?
First time, yes. I mean, it is frightening because it's not that they can read your WhatsApp screens or emails. That's not the point. The microphones are on, or the cameras might be on when the phone is not in use. all the time. I mean, would you like? It's not like you're hiding something. There's a difference between hiding something wrong you're doing for reasons of safety versus, if I'm talking about my grandmother's sambar recipe to somebody, I wouldn't like anybody else to know it. It's really a family secret.
No, beyond the sambar recipe, even if I am talking indiscreetly about what I really think about you, Sriram, I have the right to do that. That is my private space, right? And you talk assuming those conversations are private. You don't want a third person to hear them. There is something very violative. I think that is what we have to underscore without being trivial about it. There's something very violative and creepy. That's the word I want to use. In being spied on. But Pranesh, to Sriram's question, what are his options right now? And also to the BJP's question, if you don't give in your device, what do you want us to do? Pranesh, I want to bring you in there.
Sure. So currently in India, there are no clear laws under which people like Sriram can actually proceed. So there are laws such as under the Telegraph Act that penalize interception without authorization. But we know what happened when there was the Snoopgate episode in Gujarat, where a female architect was spied upon using the anti-terrorism squad. The Gujarat government agreed in the Gujarat High Court, that it had in fact spied upon her, but said it was done upon the request of her father. And the Gujarat High Court went on to dismiss the case as not being of public relevance. Now, it did not even check whether this was an abuse of the law, whether it actually violated the Indian Telegraph Act or not. Okay. In this case, we're not even sure whether interception has happened, because what Apple has actually told the people, if you can flash that message again on the screen, is
can we just bring up the Apple notification? No, not this. The actual alert. The alert, not this. But Pranesh, you carry on. We'll get this right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
It has only said that there are potential state actors who are trying to compromise the iPhone associated with an Apple ID. This could be
a trying to remotely compromise the iPhone associated with your Apple ID. Those are the exact words. Yeah.
This could be a remote attack. This could be an attack on your iCloud account. It needn't necessarily be some spyware that's actually on your phone. So giving in your phone doesn't mean that something will be found on the phone, because it could be some other kind of attack as well. People are assuming that the attack is on the device, that there's some spyware on the device itself. That's not what the Apple announcement or message to these people says.
So are you saying it's irrelevant? Are you saying, sorry, I'm cutting you short because I want to go to the others, but are you saying it's irrelevant whether you hand in your device or not? Is it irrelevant, or is it at least one piece of evidence?
No, it's possible that it's on an attack on the device. I'm just saying it's not dispositive. The Apple message isn't. But I want to make one quick point, which is there is a lack of laws. Now, if I have to say that an intelligence agency in India has abused its powers, we don't know what its powers are. There is no law except for one particular one, the National Investigative Agency, other than the NIA. No other investigative agency in India has been constituted under law made by Parliament.
So the opacity makes it impossible. Yeah, I get your larger point. Let me bring in Pikiti Nambiar. Pikiti, go ahead. Yeah, coming to everybody. Pikiti, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, the whole discussion what we are doing is that the same set of people whom you were showing on the screen, the same set of people were targeted earlier too. And again, the same set of people are coming again. And some of them, I feel genuinely that they from the Indian context, both in terms of politics and other things, which they are not such a relevant people. And but there is a some kind of a celebration. They wanted to take this as a more of like a celebration. Oh, I am in that list, as you were just telling the other panelists, that how are you feeling being in that in the list of those people. I think it's a matter of concern, but then in the meantime, it should not be treated as a political. It should not be treated as a very political action.
But PKD, it's being treated as political because they're saying there's no BJP MP in that list. Just that makes it political.
There may have been some of the BJP MPs may also have received it. They may not wanted to make this as a political thing. I told you that about a year ago, I got a message, but I don't remember that message. This is something which most of the people do get. But if at an organized time, in a 1 day period or a 24 hours period, if everybody is from the opposition is getting such kind of a message, there could be another angle. Since there are some technical people, all these people may have opened, because since we are talking about an India alliance or those kind of a people, they may have opened a particular link, and that link could even lead to some kind of a malware. And Apple, as a one of the most sophisticated technology platform, may have stopped it.
Okay. Let me.
I think it requires to have a very
okay. There are 2 points you've made.
Even the people who are there, nobody can define it. I even asked my people. I have a big cyber team. They could not. They said it could be anything.
Now, it is entirely possible. It is entirely possible, Mahima, before I come back to the tech part of it, that BJP members of parliament have also received such an alert, but think it's something that might embarrass the government and therefore have not gone public with it. We actually don't know. We have no way of knowing. We only know what people will tell us, right? So I want you to elaborate on why you're so convinced that this is a hit job by a government-affiliated agency, outsourced or not. Because that is the allegation the opposition has made.
I was quite amused, Barkha, listening to the previous panelist, Mr. Nambiar, because, he went deep into conspiracy theories, trying to believe what he would like to. But then let me remind him and the others that just 2 weeks ago, it's not long ago, it's just 2 weeks ago that Aadhaar data of around 81.5 crore Indians was offered by hackers on the dark web for $80,000, Barkha. And some reports have even claimed that the breach came from Indian Council of Medical Research. And such breaches have only increased in the past recent years. So while we are contemplating conspiracy theories, why not, ask the government of the answers which they are dutiful of giving to the citizens of this country, especially when the last 5 years there were 47 data leaks and 142 data breaches, as reported by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Why not ask them what have they been doing about it? Okay. What are the reforms and measures that they have taken? And then this happens to some of the tallest leaders in the country months ahead of our general elections, when already we know that there's much at stake and too many questions unanswered. So I think better ask of the answers from the authorities that would give them, rather than
I want you to say that I think Apple also needs to come out and say something in public, but I'm not sure if Pranesh and Divij would agree with me. But before that, since we've spoken about okay, Divij disagrees. Give me just a second. I just want to play out first what Rahul Gandhi said, the allegation that is coming from the opposition, and then what the government said. So first, this is Rahul Gandhi accusing the government of snooping on the opposition.
No, the last inquiry, the last Pegasus inquiry, where, my name was also there, that sort of disappeared, right? So that tells you the situation in the country. Our job as opposition is to make people understand what is going on. And I'm very happy that more and more people are understanding what is going on. It's very clear. And this is clearly a sign of panic, right? This is clearly, this is not just one person, this is the whole opposition. So this is obviously, this is not done by somebody who's not scared, or this is not done by somebody who's honest or who believes in themselves. This is the work of criminals, of thieves. Only thieves and criminals would want to do this. कम लोग हैं जो इसके खिलाफ लड़ रहे हैं, मगर हम डरने वाले नहीं हैं, हम लड़ने वाले लोग हैं, हम पीछे नहीं हटेंगे। जितनी टैपिंग करनी है कर लो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मुझे तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। अगर आपको मेरा फोन चाहिए मैं दे देता हूं, आपको उठा के ले लो।
Okay, he said अगर आपको मेरा फोन चाहिए तो आप ले लो. Probably meant rhetorically to say I have nothing to hide. The BJP has denied any links with the government. The IT minister has ordered a probe, and this is what Ravi Shankar Prasad had to say.
अब ऐसा है, ये क्या मैसेज है नहीं है ये उनका कहना है ना, इसको एप्पल क्लैरिफाई करेगा। उसको उनसे परेशानी है तो एफआईआर कर दें एफआईआर, कौन रोक रहा है उनको? क्या वैसे ही होगा जब राहुल गांधी ने देश में हल्ला करके कि मेरा फोन पेगासस में हैक हुआ है, और जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा अपना फोन दीजिए इन्वेस्टिगेशन के लिए बिफोर द कमिटी, नहीं दिया उन्होंने। तो ये तो मुझे, और आपने शशि थरूर की बात की तो खुद स्टैंडिंग कमेटी के चेयरमैन रहे हैं, आईटी के, टेलीकॉम के, उठा करके क्यों नहीं पूछते हैं एप्पल के कंपनी से, गिव एक्सप्लेनेशन व्हाट दिस मैटर। नहीं संतोषजनक हो एफआईआर करें, लेकिन ये सब कहने के पहले सरकार पर आरोप, ये बिल्कुल बेबुनियाद है, फॉल्स है।
So two important points there, Divij, raised by Ravi Shankar Prasad. One speaks to what I was trying to say. One, he said that Shashi Tharoor, who's also received this alert, has headed the parliamentary panel on information technology, can actually summon Apple before it and say, hey, listen, tell us what's going on. Point one. Point two, I asked, and I believe you disagree, doesn't Apple owe Indians some answer here? Divij?
Right. So on
Divij,
both
unmute.
points,
Now I can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
On both points, I think, looking at the way in which, again, threat reporting works, I think Apple might have some more information about, what they've noticed, the kinds of patterns they've seen in terms of the intrusion, and how they've tried to figure out whether it's state-sponsored or not, depending on the sophistication of the attack. But I doubt it's likely that if you even summon Apple and say that, okay, tell us exactly who did this, they wouldn't be able to do, because this is the nature of investigating an intrusion of this kind. It's probabilistic, that you look at different kinds of patterns and how different actors work. You have a whole bunch of signals. You're passing those signals through kind of, different kinds of like pattern recognition technologies. And every security team will come up with a different explanation for what that might mean. Now, the fact that they've said specifically that this is this is likely to be a state-sponsored attack, that it is able to intercept your communications, means it's not like what Mr. Nambiar said in terms of people getting a general notification saying that update your OS, something might be, there might be a tiny vulnerability. That it's clear that this is a highly intrusive, highly sophisticated and targeted act, right? And so there's a very clear distinction between that. And so, I'm not sure how much Apple might be able to cooperate and eventually help out. I think they can possibly do more, but we don't really know how much information they actually have in terms of the specifics of this.
But Divij, where it leaves everybody is just to assume at all times that anybody, official, non-official, can snoop on you at any given time, can hack into you, can be listening. I mean, like, I don't know if Sriram, is it only governments that owe answers? Has big technology done its duty by sending you that alert?
Yes, Barkha, let me make this very important point. By this sheer instant politicization of making it Congress versus BJP and accusing a party-led government mindset as being the only potential state actor involved, we have ruled out the possibility that some other states are possibly involved. What if this is a Chinese firm doing it? Would you just dismiss it? I believe the government of this country has to protect citizens, including protect them in cyber context. So whether you are in opposition, whether you're in the ruling party, whether you're a journalist who praises the government or accuses the government of something or not, it is the job of the government to protect. And second thing, Apple is just a minute percentage of the phones Indians have. Androids may not even be able to give you this kind of an alert. Do not assume that every other phone who has not received an alert is not under attack. So yes, Barkha, you and I and every one of us is under constant potential of being surveilled by private parties, or state parties, which could mean parties or governments. There were disturbing accounts and reports briefly that Pegasus may have been sold to some non-state, which they denied, and Pegasus is not the only player in this field. It's one name that...
I think you raised a very important point. State doesn't mean your state. It can mean any state. It's about the sophistication to launch that attack. Mahima, I'm out of time, and I wanted to give Pranesh the last word, but if you have a 30-second on the instant politicization that Sriram is saying, will actually leave people like him even more sort of bereft of answers. Very quickly, Mahima, ma'am.
I just quickly wanted to remind about the recent Chinese individual intrusions in our country, and especially Gujarat. At the behest of Gujarat and UP police, we found out how Chinese individuals were actually functioning and duping our people of their money, and the similar stories about the data. So I think the government has much to answer, and we must start raising those questions, and vigorously so.
Okay, Pranesh, very briefly, I really have to close. What do you see happening next? Or what should happen next?
One, I just want to remind people that we kept talking about the committee investigating Pegasus. Now, the government wouldn't tell the Supreme Court or the committee whether it had purchased Pegasus. That's a much easier thing for the government to do. It didn't come clean. It said, oh, you prove that you were attacked by Pegasus, rather than just saying whether it had in fact purchased Pegasus, which is a much simpler thing for it to do. Secondly, we need to bring intelligence agencies in India under the rule of law. They have to be made answerable to Parliament. We need to pass laws as the US government did in the aftermath of the Watergate incident, where we hold them accountable, where we clearly say what they can and cannot do, where we build in a kind of balance between the imperatives of national security and the fundamental right to privacy, and we have to have those laws. None of this political mudslinging will amount to anything unless we have laws in place, and those laws can be made effective by approaching courts when they're not being followed.
I think that's a very important point. In the United States of America, you have intelligence agencies answer to the Senate in hearings that are fully broadcast and available for everybody to access. More questions than answers at this point, but leaving it there. Thank you to PKD Mahima, to Sriram, Divij, and Pranesh, and to our audience. Thank you as ever. See you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.